What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 20 of ValueTown. I'm your host, ChanManV, and you can tell that Crip and Trump are not here today. They don't look a lot different. These two guys obviously are not Crip and Trump. Those guys are kind of on their own adventures for this week, but hopefully they'll be back next week. Trump's doing the C-Story Cup over in Germany. You'll be able to see him playing tomorrow. And Crip has a different schedule, so we're trying to figure out just how to work in the ValueTown schedule with what he's doing right now. And also, we're going to be incorporating some more constructed into ValueTown. That's kind of, we've always been more arena-based and that sort of thing, but community's obviously evolving more towards a constructed discussion, that sort of thing, and I think the show is going to continue to evolve that direction too. So we'll kind of figure out how to split things up, and we'll be having a lot more different people on the show. But today, we got some really good players on today, first-timers on ValueTown. I want to introduce first Reynad, who is a player, a very popular streamer, and the creator of a lot of decks that the communities have been using, really laddering these days, particularly the budget ones, proving that you don't need a lot of money to actually get to Legends, which is really, really cool. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And second, we got somebody who's one of those rare breeds whose main class is actually Priest. And he's been having a lot of success with Priest over the last few seasons. And recently was picked up by Root Gaming, and which is really cool. It's actually the first player for Root, so really, really great opportunity for him. Welcome, Amaz.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, and I'm pretty much the opposite of Reynad. I show how you spend a lot of money and go to Legend.
Dude, I'm along the same lines, man. I would never have made it trying to do a budget deck. But congrats, first off, Amaz. Congrats on joining Root, man. That team is one that I know very well in StarCraft 2, and I know Katz has always had a great eye for talent in StarCraft 2, and I'm sure it's gonna carry over into Hearthstone. So really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you very much. I actually don't follow StarCraft 2 that much, but now that I'm in Root, I actually started looking at it a bit.
Yeah,
So,
they're
good to know.
they're like the grassroots, kind of develop NA players type of team. So it's a really great environment over there. But today's show, guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off. We're gonna talk about meta, kind of the topics are saying current meta, and then I'll give these two guys' opinion on what the meta is currently on the ladder, and maybe some trends, and maybe how they're developing their decks to maybe counter that. And then we'll start talking about some of their decks. We'll take a look at the decks that they're using right now and get their thoughts on it. Maybe have them discuss each other's decks, which could be pretty cool. And then we'll finish the show like we always do with some Q&A. You can post your questions in the Reddit comments for the thread today. Here's the link to it. And I'll sort by top and take the top questions like we always do and try to get to as many as we can with however much time we have. But all right, let's talk meta, guys. The season just started, maybe about, 5 days ago now? And what are some of the trends that you're seeing just kind of on your send back up to Legend this season? I'll start off with you, Reynad.
Zoo everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I knew that deck would get popular because it really had no bad matchups even against the decks that were like geared to beat it. But it ended up being like over half the games I played from rank 25 to like 10 was just straight up mirror matches, and that got frustrating after a while for sure. But other than that, it's a lot of like, well, first it was basically all Zoo versus all Druid. Then people found out that because Druid was so popular, Handlock became popular again because that matchup is like 90-10 in Handlock's favor. So we started seeing a lot of that. It's like the giant Warlock deck, for those of you guys who don't know. And so once that started getting popular, Zoo started winning a little bit more because the matchup against Handlock's a little bit better than the matchup against Druid. And yeah, it's just kind of been...
Kind of goes through
what
phases.
got pushed out of the metagame altogether was like the dedicated control decks that beat other control decks, all the faceless manipulator stuff, Priest, all that stuff. I started seeing a lot less than in season 3. That was like that was the biggest change, I guess.
Okay, Maz, what are your thoughts on the meta right now?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Reynad just made the Zoo deck popular and seeing it everywhere. Seeing quite a few hunters, I guess. That's always fast. I mean, people tend to go People tend to like fast aggro decks and they don't win. They just start another game and try to win that. That's really the quickest way and most efficient way to rank up for most people. It's a pain for Priest. Handlock is a pain for Priest.
Yeah.
Murloc deck is a pain for Priest. Man, laddering as a Priest is not good. If you want to ladder really fast, you should just do Shaman. I think Shaman counters a lot right now. Counters it doesn't beat Hunter, but counters the locks basically. Counters both type of locks. So that's
Have you
really
been
nice.
seeing much of the control hunter at all, or has it just been mostly aggro hunter?
No, not right now. I've seen a few after it became popular again. I mean after there was some intervention with it, but not as much as the in the face hunter.
Okay. As for I guess how you're adapting to I guess some of these trends, are there any specific things that you've had success with, Reynad?
Well, getting on that priest topic, the class did get worse if you're building like the season 3 build, but I actually tried it myself and I actually went back to playing Shadow Word Pain, which is a card that I really didn't like, a couple weeks ago, but once the Zoo deck got popular, it's actually pretty good against cards like Scarlet Crusader and Direwolf, so he actually had good targets for it again, so I was trying priest with like 4 power words and it was doing okay, but yeah, you're still probably better off playing a different class because you're gonna have a hard time with most like the aggressive decks that aren't Hunter. I think you're gonna have trouble with. Although I do like Priest matchup against Hunter actually.
Okay. Amaz?
But
Yeah, Priest is really good against hunter. Priest is quite good, but yeah, the real big problem of Priest against Warlock is Shadow Madness is really bad. If they have anything like a Void Walker out, you can't use Shadow Madness at all. That's really the main problem there.
I see.
So yeah, 90-10 for Warlocks against Priests. It's just hard.
How much of the other classes do you play, Amaz? I mean, I think everybody knows you play priest.
Yeah, well, I do practice, warriors. I practice warriors, druids. Right? Druids are easy to play, and paladins as well. Because in tournaments, you can't really start off with a priest. I don't believe you should start with a priest. Priest is kind of like a counterplay, especially with tournaments that have multiple decks. Like you can have more decks than you're actually playing matches. Then a priest as a bench deck is really really good because you can just craft a deck specifically to counter say handlock or something.
Yeah.
And you can just dish the pyromancer and stuff like that, and that's a really good counterplay. So priest is kind of like the tournament thing. It's not really a ladder class, but in tournaments it's actually not bad.
Okay.
I completely agree. It's fantastic against every mid-range and control deck in like the tournament setting. On ladder, there's just too much aggro, but yeah, in tournaments, it's like I would say it's top 3 classes actually. Really powerful.
In your opinion, so on the ladder, what would be your predictions as to I guess like a class kind of ascending that's not really right there right now? Like I think you would something analogous to maybe like a shaman last season. Shaman just kind of got super popular. I think maybe mid to second, probably mid season and then on. Will there be another class like that this season?
Okay, the last time this happened that a Warlock aggro deck became this popular, it was back when Blood Imp was the most overpowered card in the game, and it wasn't particularly close. For anybody that played Magic at all, because I know there's a few of you guys out there, it was like a 1-mana asymmetrical sphere of resistance. It was just the least balanced thing in the entirety of Hearthstone. And Warlock aggro never actually fell out of favor until they ended up nerfing that card. And it took basically a month and a half to figure out how to build the deck without it because building it the way that it used to be built without Blood Imp basically made it impossible to beat cards like Swipe and stuff. So I guess what I'm saying is there's no specific class that's like necessarily good against this deck. That's why it's the best deck in the game. You're going to be batting above 50% against everything. So since there's not really a direct hard counter to it, except for I guess maybe like double Ancient of War, Iron Bark Oak, Druid or something like with Healing Touch, I guess it's going to take another set of bannings or nerfs, I think, to make it. Either
Really?
people are going to get
Wow.
bored of playing it,
Okay.
or yeah, there's nothing in the game. It's just a fundamentally broken strategy because of the hero power, and there's nothing that like, there's nothing. Like I've tried. What you will see instead of an emergence of new classes is like, kind of a fallback to cards that kind of fell out of favor that are now good again. A good example of that is Claw. You're starting to see a lot more of that in Druid now because it lets you play 2 removal spells in one turn, like on turn 3. to not fall behind, not get snowballed on by the Warlock deck. Because the Warlock deck is actually phenomenal against like people playing one removal spell a turn. Even if it's Wrath into Swipe into Life Gain, like you can beat that because you'll never run out of cards, and all of your creatures are resilient against single removal spells. Basically, Harvest Golem's going to leave something behind, so Scarlet Crusader. So you'll see cards like Claw get popular again. One of the decks I was thinking might be really good right now, but I haven't tried it yet, is like Season 1 Strifecrow Druid with like main deck Wild Pyromancer and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually cutting the Ancient Watcher, despite that card being, so good against aggro. But yeah, I haven't tried that out yet.
Amaz, your thoughts on maybe something that may emerge later? Or maybe even
really,
a counter to the
really the main thing about laddering is consistency, right? We just want to find decks that do over 50, right? Like that's the baseline. So anything that's versatile would make the cut. So obviously Druids are still among the best with Innervate, right?
Yeah.
Such a fast acceleration. Come to think of it, an overload is actually a mechanic that accelerates as well. It's really hard to beat a roar and a I call it a roar and an Aru combo. It's like basically the Unbound plus the Feral Spirit, right? Turn 2 Unbound with Coin.
Okay, sure.
Turn 3 Feral Spirit. It's really hard to beat that. So as well as like Innervate Yeti, right? So if you get those openings, then you're really set. Those two classes are really the only ones who can do that. Yeah, so consistency really. Shamans are consistent, Druids are consistent, Warlocks are consistent. So these are the classes that people use generally.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the release is right around the corner. Just kind of all indications I think are really saying that based on just all the Blizzard folks. Do you think the game's in a state to launch? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Reynad, does it look like?
No, God, no, not even close.
Okay.
I mean, I'm excited. They said that they're gonna have a big patch with all the major bugs fixed. So, I mean, Defender of Argus is like the best neutral in the game right now, and once it actually buffs 2 creatures instead of 1, I can't wait to see how powerful it actually is. Might have to get nerfed again. But yeah, I'm excited for the positioning bug and the hand bug to get fixed. Those are the
those
only
are supposed
two.
to be fixed by. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more updates. I think before the launch is what they're saying. So those better be fixed. Those are like so blatant right now.
Yeah.
Amaz, what you think?
Yeah, same really. I'm just excited for the bug changes. So
Okay. Well, all right. Why don't we go into the decks? Why don't we talk a little bit about the decks, and we'll start off with your priest deck, Amaz, and we'll
Sure.
switch over here. Okay, so it's called Recipe of Love, which is a cool name for it. But again, you're one of the few. There's probably like 3 or 4 guys that main priest and really stick to playing priest, even with the meta changing a bit. Talk to me about the main, I guess, design of this deck, and what are some things that maybe other folks that aren't familiar with priests don't really understand about this.
well, yeah, priest. So for the big priest guys, the other priest guys are Duckwing, Duckface, and Era, right? So
Yep.
those are the main priest guys. And for building a priest deck, you really want to choose combos, right? Because that's how it works. You want to do these combos because they're so effective. There's the Pyro combo, there's the Circle of Healing combo, and there's the Watcher combo. Now, unfortunately, each deck only has 30 cards, so you could not fit all 3 combos. And the combos actually have bad synergy with each other if you fit all 3. For example, a very easy example is if you put a Wild Pyro down, if you do a Wild Pyro combo with a Ancient Watcher down, then the Ancient Watcher takes damage. That's
Yeah.
already pretty bad. So if you have a Circle of Killing, which is Arcanine Circle, that's just going to be pretty bad. So you can really only choose 2 combos out of 3 there. The Alchemist was actually way back then when Alchemist wasn't discovered yet. One of my viewers went, "Oh, is Alchemist a fun card to put in this?" And then it's like, "Oh, that's actually pretty good because it can kill deaths. It can death a Yeti basically. It can change a Yeti. It can kill Pagos. That's actually the main reason I saw too many Pagos. They are getting very annoying. But then once you put in Alchemist, you go, oh, then Cabal Shadow Priest is actually not bad. Because not only is Cabal really good in stealing Arguses and Sun Furies, because they're everywhere right now, you could do some funky stuff, like stealing a Cairn with Crazy Alchemist. That's always fun. Let's see.
Stealing a Karen with Stealing?
Yeah, stealing a
Okay.
Karen is actually pretty easy. You just need something on the board, right? You just need something on the board, whack Karen to 1 or 2 health,
Oh, I see. I see.
and then
Got
you
it.
can change it, steal it. It just feels very good.
Okay.
Pretty awesome.
Oh, Renat, you
I
were gonna
like
say
the
something?
list. Yeah, no, I like the list. It's the only time I was actually winning with Priest is when I was playing a list similar to yours. When I was winning like above 60%. It's I definitely agree with Double Shadow Priest. It's like, I mean, I agree with every card in this deck. I think it's really well built, except for Crazed Alchemist. That's the guy I really don't like. I think if you're having trouble with Nat Pagel, you could try. Basically, Nat Pagel's like the only situation where it's a favorable trade for you because you're killing something and you're like being up a 2/2. But anytime that you're like flipping a Yeti and then Shadow or Deathing it or something, you're using like 5 mana to kill a 4 mana card, and you're using basically 2 cards to do it because the 2/2 doesn't really count for a full card. So even though it gives you a lot of ways to deal with things that you'd have trouble dealing with, um, personally I didn't like Alchemist when I tried him because I felt like it was always a bad trade for me, even when it was doing like cool stuff and making some of my cards live when they
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't be. Um, but I mean, I could see the counter argument to that too. Like, I guess I prefer Shadowward, the little Shadowward, whatever it's called. But
Shadow Pain.
The pain.
Pain.
yeah,
Okay.
like, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
the other 20 seem awesome. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Shower Pain is actually gaining is really quite good because of course the Zoo deck and of course Mages coming back a bit because of Trump. It's really good against War Elemental. Yeah, you're so happy when you
Yeah.
can
Oh
paint a
yeah,
War
that's true.
Elemental.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alchemist sometimes when Druid was really popular because this deck was way back then too, right? When Druid was really popular, Coin, Innervate, Yeti, it just happens in 50% of games. You think it's really hard to pull off that combo, it's actually quite easy. So you have to wait till really turn 6 to remove it because when you drop something, it's probably gonna get wrapped. When you drop something else, it's gonna probably get swiped or clawed or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
to counter that, you can Alchemist and then you can Def it. So there's really that good. But the best thing about the Alchemist is against Shamans. It's so good against Shamans.
Oh yeah.
One of the best
Yeah, it
cards.
just kills so mana
Right,
tide.
exactly.
Any
So
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
so yeah, guys, Shamans are really good in ladder right now because they beat blocks. So hopefully everyone switches to Shamans so I can beat more
So,
Shamans.
so it beats Lost because Reynad, you were saying there was really no direct.
No, it's not even
Counter
close.
deck.
Actually,
Oh,
the
no,
way
no,
that
no.
the way that I built the
Okay,
Warlock
we're gonna
deck in the
argue over
first
this one.
place. Yeah, well, the old build was actually had a much higher curve. I was main decking double Pit Lord, double Argent Commander. Actually, it was when I was laddering in Asia for the first time in season 3. That's when I built the deck. And the reason I built it is because rank 5 and up, it was nothing but Shaman and Druid, and I wanted an aggro deck that completely destroyed them. And I lowered the curve since then, so those matchups got a little bit worse. You know, cards like Abusive Sergeant and Shield Bearer are not going to be as good against Shaman as something like Pit Lord is. But the matchup has still been a stomping in my experience, and I've always said this on stream, but I think every single class in the game, except for Shaman, is very viable on ladder. Shaman, I think, is okay. It's not a bad deck, right? It can always win games, but there's absolutely nothing it does better than Druid. And the reason is, at like, especially at high level play, basically the entire game comes down to mana efficiency. There's this thing for Magic called like stock mana theory that I think applies to Hearthstone more than anything, more than card advantage, more than anything. And that theory is basically like whoever uses more mana throughout the course of a game has the advantage. They'll win 99% of the time. Whoever just uses more mana. So like card advantage kind of plays into that. You know, when you have more cards to play, you're not going to be passing on turn 10 with 8 mana unspent.
Right.
But basically, the reason I don't like Shaman is because the overload mechanic, it's such a huge drawback. Like, that Feral Spirit looks like it costs 3, but it really costs 5, and it does bite you in the ass. And, like, if you play a deck like Druid, what you can do is, by playing cards like Azure Drake, you basically just have enough card velocity that you never run out of stuff in hand. And instead of using, like, 3 mana on turn 3 and then only like 2 mana on turn 4 because you overloaded, you can use 3 mana on turn 3, 4 mana on turn 4, 5 mana on turn 5. Like, you're using all of your mana every turn, and like those overload cards are just, they put you into such a big tempo hole that I think as a mid-range deck, Druid's better, but Shaman is still phenomenal in tournament play, mostly because of Hex. I see a lot more slower decks, so it's like one of the, you know, it's like,
I mean, when it comes to that logic, though, I mean, the overloaded cards, they do cost, like you said, Feral Spirit costs 5 mana, but it's supposed to be valued as if it is a 5 mana card. It's just, it's distributed in 2 turns, right? So
Yeah.
isn't it still spending the same amount of mana, really? I mean, if the cards are evaluated properly. right?
I mean, would you rather spend like 5 mana on a Lightning Storm or like 5 mana on a Holy Nova or like 4 on a Consecrate? You have to kind of like weigh it
Well,
against
that's different. Yeah,
other
I
reactive
mean,
options.
right.
It it's Lightning Bolt is how do I put this? I would rather like spend 2 mana for a Wrath than 1 mana on a Lightning Bolt that kind of makes my curve more awkward. And you can play around it sometimes, but like when you like okay, sometimes you have to like Lightning Bolt on a certain turn to like set up a certain play for your next turn. You're like actively thinking about when you want to be overloaded. But then if they do something, let's say they do something and you've like you've like forced yourself to make this play because you've like made sure that you only have access to 2 mana next turn, so all you can do is play this 2 mana card that you intended to play. And all of a sudden, like that Flame Tongue Totem isn't the best play on this board position anymore. It just gives you like less options. I think it's less flexible.
Okay.
The overload mechanic just feels really awkward to me, but I don't know.
Maz, what do you think? What are your opinions on
Oh well, the overload mechanic is actually, well, from a theory standpoint, Feral Spirit does cost 5,
Yeah.
but it cannot be as good as a 5-drop because you are splitting the mana in 2 turns and you can play in turn 3, right? It's like I kind of treat it like as an innervate, right? Like if you
Yeah.
Feral Spirit turn 3, you're just playing a 5-cost card at turn 3, and you just pay something later. That's why Feral Spirit is. When I first saw Feral Spirit, I didn't like it. It was 2/3 minions, and that's really weak for a 5-cost card. But the main power really comes in at turn 3. So if you play it at like, turn 10 or something, there are better options, of course. So yeah, at the start I really didn't like the overload mechanic, but if I view it as like a innervate, then that's not bad.
Yeah.
For example, like a Lightning Storm can really save you from like a Warlock that plays like 6 minions on like turn 3 or something.
yeah.
Yeah, and Holy Nova just sucks. We are talking about Priest.
Yeah, we're
But
coming
yeah.
back to Priest. We kind of got on a tangent with Shaman there, but
But yeah, Shaman Overload is not that good. It's not that bad, but
yeah.
I guess it's something to
It's-
deal with because you do have the spell power totem, right? So if the Lightning Storm was very consistent, then if it costs 2, then it'll be so good. It'll be really
Yeah.
good.
I think the
But yeah,
overload
back to-
mechanic, like
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Reynad, go ahead.
like in a vacuum, it's costed aggressively, but it has like 2 main drawbacks. The biggest drawback is if you're ever behind, you die, like period, because if you're reactively lightning storming, even if you kill every single creature on their board, they have access. Let's say it's like turn 6 when that happened, right? Turn 5 you killed everything, you're behind. Turn 6 they're playing animals. On your turn 6 you only have access to 4 mana, whereas they had 6. And the way cards are costed in the game is like the threats cost the same amount that the answers cost to kill them. Like a flame imp's gonna die to lightning bolt, that kind of stuff, more or less. So like 2 mana cards are not gonna be killing 6 mana cards. There's no 2 mana polymorphs, that'd be imbalanced. But anyway, so like since you have 4 mana, they have like 6 mana of threats. You have 4 mana of answers. If you ever fall behind, it just creates this big snowballing effect where the overload mechanic just always puts you behind. And then the second big drawback to it is that if your opponent's good, they'll just keep track of how much mana you have access to. They'll know exactly what kind of removal you can have, and it doesn't come up always that it makes a difference, but a lot of times it's really easy to like dump a bunch of crap on the board on a turn where they're only going to have 2 mana because they're overloaded. Like that you can just maximize power. Then you get that one attack where they don't have lightning storm mana, and then they storm, but at that point you've played like a Doomguard which doesn't die to it, and it makes it really easy to like counterplay against Shaman, I guess. At least with the aggressive deck.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's come back. Let's come back to the Priest deck because we were discussing Priest.
Oh,
And
okay, sure.
when I get back to talking about a few of these cards in particular, and it could be just general Priest talk versus just this deck, but this deck in particular, so Mind Control. Mind Control I've seen in and out of Priest decks just over the last couple of seasons. Talk to me about why Mind Control in this deck.
Well, yeah. Actually, this deck has been, 90% of the time. It was just recently that I changed to Mind Control. It was a Ysera, basically.
Okay.
But then it just kept spitting me out Laughing Sisters, so I just got really annoyed.
Oh man,
I just actually
that's
removed
brutal.
it. I just put something else.
Brutal.
But then Mind Control is actually pretty good, I guess. I don't like the card, but it's there because Priest keeps a clean board every time, like every turn.